All right, seeing as it's 7 p.m., I would like to call the January 18th, 2024 business meeting of the Board of Education to order. If we could start with the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to invite our student representatives to read our land acknowledgement.
The West Irondequoit Central School District acknowledges the indigenous people of this region, and that this school district building sits on the homelands of the Onondaga of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. It is on these lands that we teach, learn, and live.
Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Dr. Johnson, are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
Yes, we have one change. We would like to add G3, which is personnel number 2.
Thank you, sir. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Thank you, Ms. Cornwell. Second by Mr. Connor. Questions or comments on the agenda? All those in favor? That is 5-0. Ms. Lustig, Mr. Sullivan, and Ms. Vargas Cronin are both unable to join us tonight. Next is public comment, and we don't have anyone signed in for public comment, but we do have public comment at all of our board meetings, and we welcome the public to come speak. Next is approval of the minutes. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the minutes of the December 21st, 2023 and the January 4th, 2024 Board of Education meetings be approved as presented.
May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Connor. May I have a second? Seconded by Ms. Cornwell. Any questions or comments on minutes? All those in favor? That is 5-0, Ms. Liston. Next is the good news, and I will turn it over to our friends.
The Student Tech Crew program at IHS, which fixes laptops and devices daily, was featured in a story that was run statewide by Spectrum News. Reporter Wendy Mills interviewed District Technology Director Mrs. Casey Wagner, Program Leader and Network Technician Mr. Angelo Palazzo, and Senior Aiden Stewart. Students can earn school credit for their work with the help desk in a program that has grown to having 6 students. For the second time in 3 years, the DECA Business Club at IHS earned a $1,000 prize for winning the RIT Challenge. Over a 4-day span in December, DECA members produced a comprehensive review of the Saunders College of Business's website, social media, and other communication platforms. The Trees for Trails event at Helmer Nature Center, which started in 1976, netted the donation of 1,000 trees that were turned into mulch to fortify trails. Thank you to Irondequoit Landscape and High Falls Tree Service for the continued partnership in shipping trees. The IHS track and field has had a record-breaking winter. Pole vaulter Finnegan Schlafer and Lily Rafferty in the weight throw have established new standards, and new marks were also set by Aubrey Smith in the 300 meters and Lizzie Tyler in the 600. They have also paired with Liliana Mendez and Ciasia Badger on the record-setting 4x200 relay team. That's it.
Thank you very much. Next is the report of the superintendent, Dr. Johnson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Metris. Welcome, everyone. I just want to start out with some customary updates. There we go. By asking our question that we adopted for the year to help us, to guide us along the way, and that is, how are all the children? So a couple examples of some of the outstanding work that's happened across the district over the last couple of weeks. If you look in the upper left-hand corner there, I just want to call out the Helmer Nature Center. We had all of our 6th graders go through an experience there recently that involved just talking about what a total solar eclipse is, kind of a big deal this year because it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime event, and so they're preparing for that. So again, just another one of the special ways that Helmer helps to support our instructional program. I just want to say thank you to everybody that was involved in that. To the right of that, our Nordic skiers were able to get out on the slopes recently, so they've been kind of eagerly awaiting the snow, despite the rest of us, probably not looking forward to that. So they had a really successful meet here recently where 3 of their skiers performed at their career best. So if you look online, our social media, it calls out those 3 skiers. But I know that they've been doing a lot of work despite the lack of snow. They're very creative with that. And having conversations with Mr. Brennan, who knows a little bit about Nordic skiing, I didn't know anything. I've come to really appreciate everything that goes into the training for that. So again, I want to call them out. They also beat 2 perennial powerhouses at that meet, so congratulations to them on their success. In the lower left, we talk about our art program, and we got a new installation of art out here in the lobby. So again, just thank you for our teachers and the time that they put in to showcase that work and create a more warm and welcoming environment here for our guests. But this is a pretty creative project by Ms. Nassimo at the high school, where when we talk about supporting a student's journey towards establishing, discovering, and investigating their sense of identity. Here's a way that she's actually involved in that through the arts. And in her studio and fine arts class, the students were able to create self-portraits using torn paper. So I've never seen art like that. It's pretty cool, and I think it just reflects the creativity and the way that they just thoughtfully planned to engage our students in a relevant way that is really connects across the disciplines. So just wanted to thank her for that and all the ways that our art department supports us along the way. And then we've started to kick off our senior nights. It's hard to believe, the winter sports season. We're already starting the senior nights. Tonight I was blessed to go and watch some of our swimming and diving seniors. One of our seniors at diving had his career best tonight. You watch them dive, it takes my breath away because I'm so scared. But it's truly magnificent, the talent that they've developed. But here we have the wrestlers who competed last night. They got a win. They had a dual match, win against McQuaid to begin with. And then they fought hard against DR. But I just want to call them out because they've been battling with numbers over the last couple of years, and the coaches they've done a great job, along with these seniors and some of the upperclassmen, to really stick with it. And I was talking to one of the coaches today, and what really struck me was just their fitness. Now, wrestling is always a tough sport, but when we looked at our kids last night, they were more fit, and their endurance was evidently higher than their opponent in that first meet. So I just want to recognize our seniors across all sports, but just really call out the program for their resilience. And from what I hear, they're really building up the numbers at the younger levels, which is a tribute to all the work that they're doing across that program. Next, I just wanted to show a quick picture. So thanks to your support, we were able to take a really unexpected tragic event with the flooding of one of our middle schools and find that silver lining. So what you see here is going through the decision-making process. We looked at replacing that with a wooden floor, which was what was existing, and instead we went with this poly floor, kind of a rubber base. But what's really cool is it really livens up and brightens up that space. So when you walk in there, it's just, this is what we're looking for. It's energizing. The kids they're super excited to get in there. And I was talking with Mr. DiMartino today, and he's got a special idea about how he's going to kick off this gym and have the grand opening. He's looking for somebody that can dunk, if that gives you any. I said I couldn't, but I asked the board. I said graduates, so. But this was an inconvenience to a lot of people along the way because it pushed the phys ed teachers and the music teachers out of the space. But, and it really put an added layer onto that building custodial crew there. They never blinked, they never flinched, and they've handled that again. We talked about that creativity, the resilience, to find some ways to really keep those students engaged despite the limitations and the disruption. So just want to thank them. Talked about the Trees for Trails. There's a group that was up there chipping some trees. So I just want to thank you to send a shout out to everybody that showed up, and also again, High Falls and Irondequoit Landscape. A couple updates for you. So we received some public comment on the 21st of December, and we've done some follow-up work with that. At this point, had conversations with everyone that spoke, with the exception of one person. Been leaving some messages. We had a chance to sit down and meet with some of the folks that were involved. Had a great conversation. You know, some of the things that were already in motion that really support some of the questions that were raised there. There's people in the room that are working on this, is an extension grant for UPK. So when we talk about the funding, there are opportunities to enhance that funding, but it requires a base program. So we cannot extend a program if we don't have a program, and that's something that we worked very hard to do over the last 2 years. So Ms. Megan's leading a charge to write this application for this extension grant, and if we're awarded that grant, that will help us to expand that program and provide some additional funding for those partners that are part of that expansion. So we'll keep you informed on that. The other piece that was really called out that I want to speak to is the mid-range to long-range, just programmatic planning and the capital planning. So again, you know, timing's everything. We were launching our new website, and UPK, we established an identity. So working collaboratively across the board, we had a lot of people involved. We now have that landing space there with information that people can go to. It's got that identity. We're going to continue to build that. Information's available for this year. Some just kind of introductory information about what's going to be available. And we'll continue to enhance that as more information emerges. But I also want to talk about the capital planning, because Pine Grove, when we presented that to the community, a key part of that was, you know, UPK. And we said we were going to seek approval to purchase that because we wanted to create some classrooms there. And it is time. That was a call to action, listening to those folks, and we've been talking about that. But working with Mr. Brenner, our facilities planning team, we're going to put some pencil to paper, create kind of a backstop of what we want to work towards to launch that. So we've started to involve our architects and engineers. We did a site visit with our facility planning committee this week, and so we'll have more information that's going to be created to bring back to you around that. So super excited about the trajectory of that work. Shared with you this week a letter from a student. Had an outstanding senior reach out to the board and I with an idea around their elective. So it's Literature and Diverse Voices, I believe, is the name of the elective. And one of the projects in that elective is to reach out to someone in the community around something that they want to advocate for. Something to change related to equity, diversity, and voice. And so they reached out, and they were just really celebrating the experience in this class and how it's impacting them and others. And their question was, could we consider that as a required graduation, or graduation requirement? And the answer is always yes. So, you know, we're going to take that back. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion that would have to take place to do that. But one of the things that I think is important to point out is that we've created opportunities for students, especially at those upper grades, to connect their passions, their interests, their identities with these opportunities, and to explore that. And this is evidence of that. So I just want to thank everybody that's been involved in that over the years, because it works, obviously. So I've scheduled a follow-up meeting with that student in the next 2 weeks, and I'll keep you up to date. So we have a budget workshop next week. We're ready for that. We've got a lot of information from the field. A couple of key points that we're looking forward to is just analyzing the different positions that have been supported by the federal grants over the last 3 years. And thanks to you, we put some placeholders, built some placeholders into the budget last year with some one-time expenditures, so we have some room to consider what to do with some of those positions, analyze the impact, right? how to carry that forward. And then, again, working on the facility side, and I'll give Mr. Brennan a lot of credit with our principals and the staff at the department and building levels. They brought back some great ideas around how to continue to enhance that learning environment. And what that says to me is the work that we've been doing over the last couple of years around reconsidering the learning environments through the grants is having the effect that we intended. People are seeing it. When I go into buildings and I see the classrooms that are impacted by that, there's an energy in there. They want to call me over. They want me to come in, talk with the students and see that. You saw some of this at the study sessions, but now we're seeing some of that emerge through some of the requests in the building. So, so we'll talk a little bit about that and lots of other stuff. So we look forward to that. And last, just a reminder about the legislative breakfast on the 3rd. We do have a student that's preparing to help to introduce that to the legislators, so that's exciting that we're going to have that type of student representation and voice there. And then we're working on some legislative priorities that you can take along with you based on our conversations, and we'll present that for further discussion between now and then. So with that, happy to answer any questions about these things, or any other items across the district.
Anything for Dr. Nelson? Okay, thank you very much.
So much.
Next on the agenda is Superintendent's Report, Esports.
Yeah, so I have a friend and a colleague with me today, Mr. Zazek. Come on up, my friend. Many of you know Mr. Zazek for his work as an instructional technology TOSA over the years, which was first introduced to really support, I believe, the onboarding of like IC 0365, really helping to integrate those things into classrooms and buildings. Since then, he stepped back into the classroom part-time, but he continues to support our instructional program. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I've really appreciated and enjoyed is how he's helping us to educate ourselves around AI. So we did some work in the summer. He continues to do that work with our teachers. And he's here tonight to share some progress with esports. So, Ms. Meek, anything else to add before we turn over to Mr.?
Yeah, and I know Jim will speak to some of this, but really excited about this opportunity to explore another option for students who, may already be involved, but also hopefully reaching some students who have a particular interest in some of the current after-school offerings. So just really, Jim has done the due diligence to reach out to other districts as others have explored this. Some have it up and running in very large capacities and others in smaller, but it's definitely something that I think is of great interest to our students and worth exploring. So Jim's going to update you to our progress so far.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's a great opportunity with our looking at other schools in the area that offer it. It's another outlet, it's another opportunity. It's building teamwork, it's collaborating and working together. There's ways to connect with the industry and make connections in that way too. So there's a lot of benefits beyond just the fun and excitement of a esports team. So there are, for example, opportunities for scholarships and careers that come from this. There are a lot of benefits in that way. We've made some great progress this year so far in investigating it, and I wanted to share a little bit of that with you today. So we did a little bit of research in the beginning of the school year. We looked at some of the other schools in the area, and some have like a club level involvement, and some all the way up to pretty intense team level involvement for esports, and so there's a range there. It does make some sense to start at a smaller scale and kind of work our way up. That's kind of what we're considering in kind of the plans we're talking about. The main league in mind is High School Esports League. That's one kind of the largest one, and the one that in our area, we have a Monroe one, Boces Coaster, that gives us can give us some advice and some structuring and rostering and a lot of the information we would need, as well as 9 other districts in the area are part of that, and they said there's a couple more that are interested as well, so that may have even already gone up. They're also working on, while esports is more of a national thing, they're working on a Section 5 style kind of local tournament in the wintertime, and they're actually piloting that, I believe, currently, or soon. So we looked at that kind of as research, and then wanted to figure out the interest level on both students and hopeful staff that may be interested. We sent out a survey at the beginning of this year, or the beginning of this month, and also to high schoolers and 8th graders. And we currently have 77 responses of willing, interested students. So definitely the demand's there, and it's only been a little bit of time, and I don't know if everyone got to see the survey yet. So definitely there's demand there. We did a little seeking out about staff interest at high school and then to the whole district, just seeing who would be interested there. And we have some interest there. I think as we further evolve and figure out what the structure will be, that'll help iron out who wants to step up and further define that role. We also researched the equipment that would be needed, and the technical needs, and their plans are in motion to purchase the equipment and install by late spring. And so we'll be ready for the beginning of the next school year. In terms of next steps, we have some ideas of maybe with that interest that there's a plan to have possibly a console club this year, where we'll have kids come in, and we might not have the computer set up, but we'll be able to, maybe they can bring consoles, or we can do something with that. Because in the high school esports league, there are some that are like your Nintendo-based games, and then there's also computer-based. And so we could start in that, kind of get the students' point of view, get their interest, help them kind of define what it will be in the new school year when we officially kind of launch it. And that's kind of the other next steps are finalizing the plan, working with all stakeholders, making sure that we have thought about the required equipment, software, and licensing, and all of those type of things. And the goal is projected start fall in the fall, in September. I will let you know that information if you want it. Any questions or anything?
Sounds exciting.
Yes, that's very exciting.
Any questions for Jim? Thank you so much for that update. It's really
Thank
exciting
you.
to see this come to fruition. I know inspiration for the board was a information exchange meeting last year at Monroe County School Board. So it's been a very short period of time we got this up and running. So that's really exciting. Thank you for all the work that you've put into it as well.
Thank you.
Next is the report of the student representatives. Take it away.
We visited with Holbrook this month. Specials were respected among all students, all grades. Gym, art, and music were their favorites. And Mr. Lang got a lot of shout outs. He's the music teacher at Holbrook. The students along all grades as well shared that the school was positive, welcoming, and students were able to easily connect with others and make friendships that lasted in and outside of their classroom. Students shared how they understood that some students needed additional help from adults and teachers regulating their emotions, and they were very educated on it, and they were understanding, and they showed compassion for the students that need help regulating and additional time with classwork in the pods that are in the rooms. A second grader mentioned getting bullied on the school bus when she started going to Colebrook. She got involved, her parents had to become involved, and so did the principal. She got taken off of the bus, so she stopped riding, but she did learn about how it's important to walk away and tell a trusted adult and find someone that's able to help. And this has been able to get followed up with, and changes were made for the student. So, yeah.
As midterm week rapidly approaches, students and teachers at IHS alike are stressing, but this doesn't mean that there is nothing going on in the school. Last Wednesday, hockey had their Teacher Appreciation Night, where 28 teachers were honored, including those from elementary schools that made lasting impacts. 13 students attended the New York State Theater Education Conference with learning workshops the weekend of January 5th to the 7th. 21 IHS students participated in the Central NY Model UN Conference, where Ethan Rhodes and Jack Debs won awards. Indoor track and field had a strong showing at the Monroe County Division II Championships, where Brandon Yingwis won the 1,000 meters, Kenneth Howard won shot put, and Isaac Nelson won triple jump to secure second place for the team. The Icy Eagles are once again doing the polar plunge on February 4th, looking to raise money for the Special Olympics. 11 people have joined the team, and $745 has been raised. The Icy Eagles hope to pass a successful amount of $3,600 that was raised last year.
Thank you very much. How much do we need to raise for Dr. Johnson to go all the way on?
He did last year, but he didn't do it.
I got
I'll be in. So, Ms. Ziff has signed up.
Oh, did she really?
She did.
That might make me want to go.
There you go. Let's put it out there. And to up the ante, she also said she's going to bring the tutus that they wear on opening day. And she's going to bring an extra one for me. So,
It's a good deflection. Thank you, as always, for your reports. And as always, you're more than welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but you are certainly not obligated. And we wish you a good night and stay warm.
Thank you.
Thank
Drive
you.
safe, folks.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is report of the treasurer. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the December 31st, 2023 financial statements and treasurer's report be accepted as presented.
May I have a motion? Thank you, Mrs. Porter. May I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Porter-Wall. Dr. Johnson?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Brennan, anything to point out specifically?
Nothing much. The only thing I noted in the summary was just our expenditure budget actually is tracking a little better than last year, but it's more of a function of delay of getting a health bill from Excelis. So we'll be paying to January. We'll be right back on track. Everything else is tracking exactly as we'd expect in the prior years. So.
Thanks, sir. Questions or comments from Mr. Brennan? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? That is 5-0, Mrs. Lustig. Next is business, and the first item is business. Dr. Johnson.
There you go. Well, again, I want to turn it over to Mr. Brennan. Mr. Brennan, any updates from this business side?
No updates.
Nice to meet you. John?
I just have a question for Mr. President and Dr. Johnson. As you know, the governor released her budget, and the state aid runs came out. So I, of course, looked them up because I don't have anything else better to do. And I was just looking at our district. While nothing really unexpected, looks like we're going to get and I know these are preliminary, James, you tell me, but the first run, I'll just say, we're just down less than 0.5% from last year, but the line that just kind of caught my eye was between 23 and 24 and 24 and 25 was building reorg incentive, it's called, I think. Was that anticipated that was going to be a drop? Is that because we've paid off some of our debt?
Exactly.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So that line has dropped off in terms of building aid, but we've always synchronized our debt service going out. So it's because, you're exactly right, because we've paid off so much of our existing debt, our building aid has dropped accordingly. And that's the cycle you want, actually.
Yeah.
With the RISE project coming out, they'll both track upwards together, and because we're leveraging so much cash, actually the building aid should continue to percolate above debt service. The nice thing for us is we're kind of unique in the fact that even though our building aid did drop off, it still is about $600,000 more than debt service. It provides us right around that amount in terms of positive cash flow.
Yeah, and I kind of thought that was it, and I wanted to thank you because I know we've talked about it in budgets. Matt's been here a while, that we use that as, using our cash to be able to drive some long-term predictive revenue to the district. And and I know we have a plan to, like I said, percolate back up. So thanks. I just kind of looked at that, and I know they're preliminary, and but they're interesting at least. It's a starting point, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brennan. Next is instruction. Dr. Johnson.
Ms. Mika, any updates from the side of instruction?
So the majority of my updates tonight will be performed by the team during new business and our mid-year curriculum updates, but just in conjunction really with our mid-year curriculum updates, I just wanted to bring to your attention a few of the committees that work closely with curriculum instruction that have had meetings since our last, so our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coalition, led by some of the leaders here within the room. So continuing our work on curriculum, looking really closely at data surrounding our demographic data of students and subgroups and advanced placement courses across all the grade levels and content areas, and really looking towards that data to build some hypotheses and then some potential action steps from it. So Kim and Orlando have been doing a great job leading that committee. Michelle has been continuing to work on some of the pieces around hiring rubric, and so she'll continue to work with that with the committee, which has been going really well. And then Leah has been leading our family engagement subcommittee, where focused on what are the additional opportunities that we can provide to our families and community to help them stay informed of all the great things that we have going on in district, just in case they miss board meetings and things like that. So what are those additional opportunities? And then the other committee that met recently was our District Curriculum Council, so we actually met just yesterday. And so all of the great work that you're going to see, and you have been hearing about now for a bit, around our curriculum has gone through that committee, and I just want to speak to just the level of thoughtfulness that the committee members have been engaging in, using our single point rubric, which helps us to review our curriculum through a culturally responsive lens. And I think it just has really strengthened the feedback that that committee has been giving, and really giving a strong purpose, instead of just kind of, we refer to it as like the rubber stamp, like it's going through the committee, but really all the work's done. And so I feel like it's brought purposefulness to that committee and the work as well, and providing really great feedback. So you'll then see the results of that in our mid-year update in just a few moments.
And any questions from Ms. Nita? Thank you very much. Next is personnel. May I have the recommended action?
Be it resolved that the personnel agenda dated January 18th, 2024, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
Moved by Mr. Connor, may I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Bay. Dr. Johnson.
Ms. Kramer, any comments?
Yes, so thank you. So tonight for your approval, we have the resignation of 3 teaching assistants and a part-time art teacher, technology teacher of 30 years of district service. On our classified side, a resignation of a teacher aide, principal secretary, and transportation director, and the retirement of a custodian of 27 years and 3 months of district service. So those 2 retirees total 57 years and 3 months of service to our students and families. We have a change in employment status of a teaching assistant to tutor, a security worker from 10 months to 12 months, the appointments of our certified staff for a long-term substitute in mathematics, 2 teaching assistants. On our classified side, a security monitor, a cleaner, and a maintenance mechanic 2. Congratulations to 3 of our cleaners for receiving permanent civil service appointments, a leave of absence of a youth assistant, and approved in-service professional development work for a teacher.
Thank you. Questions or comments from Mrs. Kramer? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is 5-0 on this list. Next is extracurricular stipends. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the extracurricular stipends dated January 18th, 2024, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mr. Connor. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Pornable. Dr. Johnson.
Ms. Kramer?
So thank you. Tonight on the agenda in red is 1 revision to extracurricular stipends for a staff member that has left the district, and so it's a replacement of that person.
Questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is 5-0, Mrs. Lustig. Next is personnel 2. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the additional personnel agenda dated January 18th, 2024, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mr. Conlon. May I have a second? Thank you, Mrs. Bourne. Dr. Johnson?
Well, before I turn over to Ms. Kramer, I want to say a couple of things. So I'm delighted to make the recommendation to you tonight for our next assistant principal at Dake. And this is that recommendation. But I just want to thank everybody that was involved in the process. And again, back to Ms. Kramer, I know that I've said this before, and we heard about it at the last meeting, about how we really fortified that process. But I'll tell you, when I sat down with a finalist recently to conduct that final interview, I was just really taken back by first their personality, how easy it was to connect with them, make that connection, which we know is so critical with our staff, with our students, with our families. This person's experience within the region, and definitely a leader in their current position, but also at the more regional level. So I think there's a lot of talent that she's bringing with us that aligns extremely well with many of our programs. That's going to help to not only enhance those, but also bring new, fresh ideas as well. So again, I think that's, we talk about our identity as a district and the importance of that in our reputation, how people see us, they want to be a part of this work. Around the academic excellence, but also around the work that we're doing around DEI, and I feel like that's really paying dividends for us. So with that, Ms. Kramer, would you like to introduce the recommendation, please?
So tonight for your approval, we have the recommendation for Dake Assistant Principal of Dr. Alexa Augustine. And Alexa does come to us after interviewing through multiple committees, including our students and parents and guardians, and also comes to us after serving as a literacy specialist at the East Lower School and academic programs at the University of Rochester Warner School.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is 5-0, Mrs. Leslie. Welcome, Dr. Hildenstein. We're very excited to have you on board. Just like our student reps, you're under no obligation to stay. Mr. Bajardi does have to stay. We're very excited to have you with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Next is new business, and the first thing is mid-year curriculum updates. Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, so we've already got a little flavor of what to expect. So again, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Miga. Ms. Miga, if you'd like to introduce the presentation.
Yeah, so tonight we have presentations from our two directors of instruction, Kim Crystal and Orlando Marrero, and then from our assistant director, Leah Daniels-Farron, around some curriculum that you have been hearing about for a bit now, but now we wanted to officially bring it to you for approval, and so they're going to take you through the process and just the updates around that.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think we decided to awkwardly
Oh.
because you know my history with the. So
don't want you to relive trouble.
Yeah. So thank you for having us tonight. If I may, when I was hired here, I had to speak, and I'm just going to say she dodged the bullet. Waterworks is rolling.
Director level position.
That's right. Anyways, you all know who we are. I'm Orlando Marrero, Director of STEAM.
Hi, Kim Crystal, Director of Humanities. Leah Daniels-Farron, Assistant Director of Counseling, Student Equity and Wellness.
And as Chrissy said, we're going to give you some updates on some of the wonderful curriculum work that has been occurring around the district. So just to give everybody a quick reminder of the curriculum writing process, we are using the Understanding by Design framework to guide that process, which consists of 3 main stages. In stage 1, we have teachers identify the desired results. That means what are the goals of the course based on the standards. Then we have teachers identify the acceptable evidence. How is it that we're going to measure progress towards those goals of the course? And then after we have determined that, we plan daily learning experiences that help kids get closer to achieving those goals and being able to perform in the assessment. So all the curriculum is written in those terms, and what you're going to see when you review the documents, you'll see a pacing guide for each course that outlines the sequence of learning for the year and how long about each unit is going to take. And then you're going to see stages 1 and 2 of each unit plan that we'll present for that course. So stage 1 and 2 being the goals for that unit and how those goals are being assessed. So starting with STEAM in particular at the grades 5, 6, that curriculum work and review has been done by the 5, 6 teachers along with the building TOSAs and myself. And so at 5, 6, some of the we've actually had to pivot a couple of times because of state mandates, but some of the areas that needed to be addressed was first and foremost addressing the New York State Science Learning Standards, which were updated to match the Next Generation Science Standards. This is also, this current year is the first year of the required investigations requirement from New York State, which is also coincides with the first year of the 5th grade science exam, which is a brand new exam aligned to those standards. We also were adjusting to the STEAM and humanities model, and in the STEAM looking for more opportunities for integration in those areas within that larger block of time, and the need to more clearly articulate how health-related topics are addressed. As you may or may not know, we don't have like a health teacher at that grade level, so the health standards get taught across in collaboration with teachers of different subjects like PE and science. So the work that's been completed so far at 5th and 6th grade, you'll see units 1 through 3 at 5th grade and units 1 and 2 at 6th grade out of 5 for each of those grade levels. So there's still a little bit more work to be done, but those units are the ones that are complete. You will also see a full scope and sequence for the year. So while those last units haven't been finalized or written yet, we do know what the trajectory is for the year for both of those courses. So some highlights, some things for you to look for when you're reading the documents, particularly in the scope and sequence. In 5th grade is where most of the heaviest integration of the New York State required investigations and health standards has happened. So you'll see highlighted where those required New York State investigations. Of note is that some of those New York State investigations have a year of 2023, that's this school year. That's because they will only be implemented at 5th grade just this year. There are 4 required investigations and they're all being tested for the first time this year, even though this is the first time kids see them. So that necessitated 5th grade students experience all 4 this year. They're intended to be spread out over 3rd through 5th grade, but we wanted to make sure that kids were prepared, so we put them in there for now. You'll also see where some of the health standard work is happening. You'll notice that at 5th grade, for example, you'll see in red the puberty lessons that were developed for the school year that students are going through, and then some of the body system stuff, which actually makes a connection to some of the health standards as well. At 6th grade, you'll see, similarly, you'll see in red some of the work that's being done around the health standards. The 6th grade folks get lucky because they only have 1 required investigation to do because they fall in the 6-8 band, so they don't have to deal with the craziness of 4. But in terms of the health standards, at that grade we hit a little bit harder some of the work related to awareness of drugs and alcohol and the negative impact that has on your body. We'll have the IPD actually join us to help do those presentations, and something that we haven't done in a long time is firearm safety. That's an important part of the standards that needs to be addressed. Obviously, we're not teaching them what to do with guns, just how to be safe if they see something that isn't supposed to be around them, never to play, never to touch, right? What to say to an adult when they are in that situation. And just like in 5th grade, connections to body systems that are connected to the health standards as well. So next steps, we obviously have more units to write. We do need to collect feedback from students, and we need to revise some of the existing units based on that student feedback, based on student or teacher feedback and student assessment. So we've shifted some of the assessments a couple of times to better meet some of the New York State requirements, and so we need to see how kids are doing in those assessments to see how well the lessons are preparing them for those assessments. And then we need to gather feedback on this first implementation of the New York State required investigations and adjust based on that.
I'm gonna drop it, I know. Okay, so hi. I'm going to share with you some of the work that we've been doing, and I know we've been updating you around humanities units tonight. I'm very excited to bring for your approval humanities units for kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, as well as humanities units for 5th and 6th grade. So the newly created humanities curriculum was born out of a review that was conducted by myself, the K-12 literacy coach, the director of data intervention assessments, got them all. ASI of instruction, classroom teacher representatives, principals, teacher leaders, I mean, everybody basically. And through that analysis, we discovered that we wanted to make sure that our humanities instruction was both aligned to science of reading research, aligned to New York State standards for both next generation ELA as well as social studies, aligned to the expectations set forth in the culturally responsive and sustaining framework by New York State, and ensuring that students are having equitable access to grade level texts that enrich their vocabulary and language development, that deepened their understanding of themselves and others, that gave them the opportunity to see themselves in their learning, and to make sure that all students had opportunities to apply their social emotional learning in authentic scenarios. And so that is really that was the goal set forth for these units. I am going to speak about the curriculum in 2 different groups. So the first one is K2. The K2 humanities curriculum was actually developed as a complement to our foundational literacy curriculum, which is CKLA Skills Strand. Excuse me. Research shows, and actually New York State just released literacy briefs around this, which was very reassuring for all of us to see New York get on the right track, saying that foundational literacy and explicit instruction around foundational literacy skills is essential. However, it is equally essential that students are having opportunities to deepen background knowledge, apply foundational literacy in authentic texts, have access to texts that are rich in language so that students have the ability to develop their own language and understanding of complex sentence structures and all of that really rich stuff that promotes listening and reading comprehension, and really helps level the playing field so all students, regardless of the experiences that they've had outside of the classroom, have the learning in the classroom to help them be successful as readers, writers, and thinkers. So the humanities curriculum is really developed around that goal, to emphasize literacy instruction around listening and reading comprehension and writing, and to emphasize civic learning as well at the K2 level, which civic learning at the K2 level really is pretty similar at the K12 level. It's all about respecting others, making sure that you are a good listener, and all those really important skills that transfer across the years. At the 5th and 6th grade level, humanities is the curriculum that encompasses all of the next-gen ELA standards and social studies standards, as well as the culturally responsive and sustaining education framework. Students engage in learning that brings in all of those strands together and gives them authentic experiences for application, and to deepen their critical thinking skills, language skills, all of that really rich stuff that we want for our students. Okay, so for K2, when you review the curriculum, I'm not going to go through this too deeply because I know I've given presentations on this curriculum before. Of course, if you have questions, happy to answer them. So at the beginning of each course, you will see your pacing guide. What's unique about the K2, when different than any of the other, similar in 3-4, but different than 5-6, is that there's CKLA here. One of the things that we really focused on this summer is identifying opportunities to reference the foundational literacy skills taught in the CKLA block in the humanities unit so that there's opportunity for repeated application, review, enrichment on those foundational literacy skills through the humanities curriculum. So basically we wanted to make sure that they're talking to each other. So I just wanted to point that out because when you review the curriculum, you will not see CKLA there, but you will see it referenced in this pacing guide. For 5th and 6th grade, the only thing I wanted to point out for you is that similar to K2, you have 4 units, 1 per quarter. But in this case, all of the instruction for literacy and reading instruction, writing instruction, and social studies are built into one really rich unit. Units can look 2 different ways. Either they're going to be integrated units, which means that all of those strands of learning are tightly connected and really reinforced, occurring at the same time through different lessons. Other units are what we call coordinated units, where there's clearly a literary element that's being taught maybe through a novel, and then there's a historical element that's really not connected to the novel. But what we really want teachers to be doing is supporting that transfer between content areas. So if you're talking about main idea in your study of a novel and talking about what's occurring within a chapter, how can you pull those skills into informational text that you're looking at in social studies and those kinds of things. So for next steps, we will be reviewing this summer the feedback that we received from students, from teachers, and the rich feedback we received from DCC. We will continue our analysis of beginning, middle, and end of year data and common assessment data to support our understanding of how this curriculum is supporting the growth we want to see for our students. We'll be analyzing examples of student writing to really see what kinds of adjustments we want to make sure that writing instruction is really emphasized. And we hope to accomplish all of that this summer.
Right, great, thanks. Okay. Oh, transitions. Didn't do that. So up next, we're going to talk a little bit about our social emotional learning curriculum. We have some updates on some pilot programs and a portion of curriculum that is up for approval tonight, which is very exciting for us. The first one we're going to be talking about is the Caring School Community Curriculum. This is a K-6 curriculum that is up for approval. This curriculum was decided by multiple years of looking at SEL curricula through our Social Emotional Learning District Level Committee. This was the curriculum that was selected about 1.5 years ago, and there was a pilot that was rolled out last year where we had several kits by the collaborative classroom that were sent to us that we were able to utilize, as well as an online learning portal that all teachers had access to throughout the year so that they could trial lessons, become more familiar with the curriculum. And then at the end of the year, we gathered feedback, and it was resounding positive feedback for this curriculum. This curriculum is aligned with the New York State SEL benchmarks. It is a CASEL, so the Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning select program. And it's really designed to mirror community building circles, and it's aligned with restorative practices. So it really embraces a lot of the initiatives we're already utilizing as a district and gives them a continuum to follow across multiple grade levels. So what we've done so far this year is in preparation for receiving the kits for all of our teachers, is we had a team that was committed to reviewing all of the curriculum over the summer. And what they came up with was a guideline for this year, knowing that it would be a soft rollout for this year. So they determined that there would be one recommended lesson, and each lesson is a week long, that would be introduced at every quarter. So you'll see for kindergarten, there's 4 different lessons all the way through 6th grade. And this was rolled out to all of our teachers, and they were all provided with full kits, all of our classroom teachers, at the beginning of the school year, so that they could start to familiarize themselves with this kit, use it as much as they wanted, but at a bare minimum ensure that all of our students had these 4 core lessons. A lot of our principals have since been able to embed some of that SEL training into their faculty meetings, and we've been doing some group work with small SEL groups in each of the buildings at the K-6 level. We also have Learning Portal access to the full curriculum for any teachers that teach multiple grade levels, so our special area teachers and our special class teachers, so they're able to access everything, not just one grade level kit. So you've all been provided access to that learning portal, which allows you to claim licenses for the entire curriculum, which does go K through 8. We're going to be utilizing it K through 6. And if you see the scope and sequence here, it's really designed to repeat and then build upon itself. So at the K1 level, there are 30 weeks of sequential lessons that are designed to really teach those core SEL skills that all students need to move forward in order of building upon themselves. And then there are some smaller lessons to be used as needed throughout the remainder of the year. In grades 2 through 6, there are 10 weeks of sequential lessons, really reinforcing those essential skills. And then there are topic week lessons that last for the remaining 30 weeks of the school year that teachers can use as needed or repeat based on what they're seeing in their classroom or what needs might bubble up over the course of the school year. At the 7 and 8 level and the 9-12 level, we're doing brand new pilots and extended pilots. So at the 7-8 level, we actually just started a pilot of 2 different SEL curricula. One of them is Character Strong, which was new to us and recommended by a number of different agencies we've worked with in the community and some other educators who've utilized that. And we're also piloting School Connect, which we're currently using at the 9-12 level. So we have an 8-week pilot that's running through the end of February. We've got about 7 or 8 teachers that are trialing this, and each of them are doing 3 lessons that we all selected together. And then they're able to go through the entire curriculum and select an additional 5 lessons that really interest them and their students. So we should have 8 lessons that we're able to compare and contrast at the end of this trial, and we'll be excited to provide some feedback at the end of that. At the 9-12 level, we have School Connect, which is another curriculum that was selected through the district-wide SEL committee. All of our 9th grade teachers in English, Science, Social Studies, and Math have one module that they're doing, which is a 10-week lesson. They've split this up so it's extended over the entire school year. So every student is going to get 4 different lessons a month. So essentially 1 a week. And those will cover all of the main SEL skills that we've decided were the most important for our 9th grade students. So these build on relationship skills, self-regulation, and they start to tie in some college and career readiness as well. We've also been able to provide access to this to our counselors, psychologists, and social workers, so they're starting to tie some of this work into their counseling lessons to provide some continuity across grades 9 through 12. So next steps at each of these levels. At K-6, we have some additional training planned for our implementation. We have a coach that we're going to be working with through the Caring School communities so that we can have full implementation, hopefully, for the start of next school year. We have some additional training that's planned for select groups over the summer. We've been collecting teacher feedback all along. We're excited to gather some student feedback as we get closer to the end of the year. At the 7-8 level, we're excited to analyze the feedback from our different pilot groups and then provide some recommendations moving forward. And then at the 9-12 level, we've started introducing monthly SEL training for the group that is utilizing the curriculum, and we're excited to continue to get some student feedback and student assessments through that program as well. I think that's it.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Awesome. Yeah, it's a lot to digest, but it was awesome. Yeah. So very exciting at the same time.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank
You're
you.
not
Thank you,
obligated to
folks.
stay as well. Orlando has to stay.
And give a speech.
Actually, I'm gonna go, Orlando can stay. Next is curriculum recommendation, K2 and 5-6 humanities units. So this is the first read, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Johnson.
Thank you so much. So what a great segue. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Miga to introduce that.
So this is the curriculum that you just received a presentation on. Again, this it shouldn't be brand new to any of us. It's work that's been ongoing for a couple of years. And for our SEL curriculum, for example, you just saw some of this at our last study session in process. So this is really one of our final steps in finalizing this as the curriculum for these grade levels. So one note is that for the STEAM and humanities curriculum, you'll see that for your approval is stage 1 and stage 2, as Orlando took you kind of through that process. And that is because those are the sections up for approval because those are the pieces that will not change with revisions because it is tied to state learning standards. Some of those bigger overarching pieces, whereas stage 3 is really meant to be more of a living document, really driven by our teachers, kind of for our teachers, and that will constantly ebb and flow based on our student data and needs. So just excited to bring these forward.
Any questions or comments from Mrs. Mia? Not a question, but it looks like we can't access the SharePoint links that are in board docs if we're able to resolve that. John and I both just tried it and said we don't have access.
I'm sure.
I'm sure you guys will figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Not to put you on, we should have kept Jim
Might
here.
have to be-
We'll figure it out.
We might have to be added as guests to
Yeah.
that SharePoint site.
Yeah, we just download them and then save
Yeah.
it there.
Yeah.
So,
Perfect.
Whatever.
I was able to access them.
Oh, maybe it's just us.
That was just for
That's right.
I'm-
I was too.
Oh,
what should that mean?
Yeah, me neither. Very interesting. Next.
Moving right along.
I think what we should tell them is that we couldn't access Kim's documents, but Orlando's documents.
Oh,
yeah.
at least they
And the
need
counseling
one here,
documents.
you
Just
know.
you might want to let Kim know that tomorrow.
Oh, sure will.
There's nothing more entertaining than like driving that wedge between you and Dr. Johnson.
You know what, I'll send her an email now.
Next is curriculum recommendations, 5-6 STEAM units. Dr. Johnson.
Ms. Mika, anything you had there?
No, you know, same details from the previous presentation, and you've gotten a first-hand look at this. But if you have any questions through or trouble accessing, it was Leah. No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully the link works, because that's, you know, a little different than typical curriculum.
Yeah, that one opens up just fine.
Perfect.
Any questions or comments on that? Next is curriculum recommendation, caring school communities for K-6. Dr. Johnson.
Ms. Mika, anything to add?
Yeah, oh, no. Sorry, I got my units mixed up there. So, no additional for that.
We won't tell Orlando you skipped.
Yeah.
We did have a question.
Well, no, it's just,
Yeah.
this is the last one, right?
Yeah, this is the
I just
last one,
wanted to
sorry.
say, one, thank you for your leadership, Chrissy, in this overall, and then just our directors and assistant directors, they're they're the ones that are, I'll say, churning this, getting our staff involved over the summer and really researching the state standards and how it ties to the Irondequoit education, right? Our spin on Aaron, you had forgot how you called it one time, but anyways, and just all that work, that this is a ton of work that goes deep and broad, and it's a lot to take in. They make it look so simple, but it really is the foundation, especially, I'll look at the K-6 level, that really sets our students up for success for their whole career, but it's important that the time they take and really thoughtful approach of how to integrate it into the different lessons and make sure that it's, what I see a lot is it's even crosstalk taught, you know what I mean? It's humanities is also then some of those skills are being used in science and even in math, you know what I mean? So just can you I know there's a ton of people that worked on it. Thank you to each one of the committees, at least for me. I know I probably speak for the whole board, but that was a lot of work, and it's nice to see that it gets to this where we get to see it like in one document. So thank you.
Well said, John. Any other questions or comments before we move on? All right. Next is field trip request. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the field trip request for DECA students to attend the DECA State Career Development Conference in Rochester, New York from March 6th, 2024 through March 8th, 2024 be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mr. Connor, seconded by Mr. Booth.
Sir, before I speak to this, do you mind if I share a comment that's unrelated totally to that?
Absolutely. Go for it.
I don't want to miss the opportunity to pay a compliment back to the board. And it really kind of piggybacks on what John had said. He said it so well. You captured so great about the work that we did. But I'll tell you, it's been almost 4 years since we did a functional review of curriculum instruction. And I can remember when we looked at those recommendations, right? Some folks looked at us like we were crazy, flipping everything upside down on his head. And I just think that thanks to your investment in that and belief really in the process, we were able to restructure our curriculum instruction around these pillars, which then impacted how we were able to organize our programming around that. And it's just so fulfilling to see all this come full circle, and for us to start to reap the benefits of that in our classrooms. It's got to feel amazing, So I wanted to just thank you for that, and thank John. You captured it perfectly. So DECA, we're taking a trip. We've had we've had over 20 students that have qualified for stage. So this is kind of a local overnight trip that's been historical for us, and we're honestly in the region one of the most highly represented schools consistently. So I don't want to miss an opportunity to celebrate that. We did have a chance to follow up. Myself and Ms. Zip went and met with the kids recently, along with the advisors, and thanks to your support, we were able to inform them that, hey, look, we're behind you, we're supporting you, we celebrate your success here, and if you are able to qualify for nationals, I explained the contributions from the district that will support them with that, and they were extremely appreciative and wanted me to make sure I brought that back to you. So there you go. With this, if there's any questions, it reflects opportunities for fundraising and the appropriate ratio for supervision. So, and in my next memo, I received an invitation that I'll pass along to you if you want to attend this. They have kind of a behind-the-scenes tour and look at this, and so we need you to register for that. I'll pass it along next week.
Questions or comments on that? I've had the opportunity to attend that in years past, and it is just amazing the scale at which things are happening. So it's a really great opportunity.
Yeah,
If you're able to go. All those in favor? That is 5-0.
We wish them luck.
Yeah. Next is policy review, and this is a first read, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, this is a big one. So this was a big change that came at us, and a lot of kind of wrinkles inside of this. So Ms. Kramer has been very busy organizing, pulling people together, and gathering information and helping us to establish this policy as required. So I want to turn it over to Ms. Kramer and allow you to introduce this.
Thanks, Dr. Johnson. So tonight for your first review is the new workplace violence prevention policy, which workplace violence prevention policies aren't necessarily new in the public sector, because in 2006, New York State enacted legislation that required public employers to develop and implement that. However, at that time, and this is tied to labor law, public schools were exempted. Now that has been removed, and effective January 4th, districts are required to develop and implement the workplace violence prevention programs and the policy. So this is the first stage for you tonight, and working with our policy service at Erie 1, we have, and our bargaining units here in the district, we have this draft first tonight for you of our workplace violence prevention policy. And just to give you a sense of the timeline for the requirement as this happened, we have to have this in the policy statement in effect and approved by February 3rd, required by labor law. And then from there, the next stages that go to this will be a regulation tied to the workplace violence prevention program. And we have timelines that will come after that for the different stages. And then we'll be required to review this annually, as well as look at data of workplace violence and use it for being proactive to make changes within our preventative. And it will definitely be closely aligned to our district safety plan and our district health and safety committee work. happy to answer any questions.
So thanks for the work. I mean, obviously they gave you so much time to turn it around. I guess the question is, it's more of, you'll do the regulations like we always do with board policy, but a policy like this, okay, and especially mid-year, does this then get pushed down to all the staff that, where I work, just for an example, is like if we have a new policy, I kind of get an email that says, hey, there's this new policy. And you kind of go and read it and you acknowledge it. We call it policy stat, it's a service we use. But just being, I know we go over a lot of this stuff in that time, Aaron, where we use in the beginning of the year for that, you know, we do the opening breakfast and then time at school for that mandatory training. And I can't name them, Michelle, I'm sure you know them, but you know, this being the middle of the year, will this be like a special, maybe email to the district that, hey, this is our new policy? Those kind of things, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've developed our new staff need to know, which is a newsletter, so we'll make sure that we lay all that out, and we can make some decisions. We also have to work with our units as well to do some of the work that you referenced moving forward, to develop those regulations and to really implement this. And so maybe there's other ways we can take your idea back, and it is essential that our staff understand this and are part of really building up those processes moving forward.
And to add to that, you'll see in the policy that there's an annual requirement of training the staff, so it is a new mandated training that we will be.
I understand your point. In the meantime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking this would be like one we would do in September. You know,
Right.
that,
Yes.
How do we cover it from
Keep an eye
January
on
to
that.
September?
Correct. Yep. Thanks, John.
Any other questions or comments on that? And this is a first read, so we will anticipate approving this at our February 1st meeting, leaving us with 2 days buffer time. Next is the consent agenda. May I have the recommended resolution?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the West Irondequoit Central School District approves the consent agenda, which includes I-2 through I-5.
May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Connor, seconded by Mrs. Cornwall. Tonight's consent agenda includes the recommendations of the Committee on Special Education, reviewed and revised policy approval, bid award HVAC repair, and donation of a Copernicus iRover 2 mobile cart. Any questions or comments, or sorry, I should say, any items on the consent agenda which a board member would like to remove for a separate discussion? Any items which a board member would like to remove to vote on separately? Any questions or comments on the consent agenda as a whole? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? That is 5-0, Ms. Lustig. That brings us to our board liaison reports. We will start with Monroe County School Board Association, and the first is Legislative Committee with Mr. Sullivan and myself. We met on January 3rd, we debriefed from our legislative Zooms, and we started prepping for the legislative breakfast, which will be, I think it's Saturday, February 8th. Does that date sound right? The sign-up link is out. It's important that as many of us that can go, do go. As Mr. Bay mentioned, our state aid runs are pretty flat, and we'd like to see them at least go up a little bit. So we will be doing some strong advocating on that. I'm pretty sure Mr. Brennan and Dr. Johnson will be putting together some specific talking points for us. I also just want to highlight that Dr. Johnson mentioned that we do have a student attending, and that student is only one of 5 students for the entire county that was invited. So pretty amazing honor and very exciting to have our district represented there. Next is labor relations with Mr. Bay and myself.
Yes, so Matt and I had a chance to, I attended remotely, I believe you were there, Matt. We attended the labor relations meeting, and it was given by one of the lawyers from our law firm that does
Fiorenza.
Thank you. And it was called Facilitating Intense Negotiations, and it's a option that a district and a bargaining unit can enter into, and it's run by PERB, and it's really an intense to shorten those negotiation times down. Some districts did mention, I didn't see the names of the districts, that they have entered in this with 1 or 2 of their units at times. So it was interesting. It seems like you know, the board and really our executive staff, it's a lift and a commitment that why it's for that short time, but it could be an option that we have. I don't think we've ever done it here, as far as I know, but it was interesting just to learn. You know, I didn't even know it was out there. You know what I mean? Kind of. But it would be something that both the bargaining unit and the district would have to agree to. So, but it was interesting just to hear about it.
Yeah, I agree with John. I didn't know that it existed until yesterday. So,
yeah.
Only thing I'll add is they highlighted that it has a 95% success rate.
Yeah. So the districts that have used it across the state.
James has a 100% success rate.
105.
So is Ms. Kramer now.
Next is information exchange with Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Vargas Cronin, and myself. I'm the only one here. So we met atypically in the evening at the Rochester Museum and Science Center last week for an update on the upcoming solar eclipse on April 8th at 3:20 p.m. And just got an update from there's a guy at the museum whose only job right now, and for like the last 3 years, has been the eclipse. And so he does a ton of outreach. We're expecting 300 to 500,000 visitors to the greater Rochester area. And we don't have school that day, so that is excellent. We are having events at the Helmer Nature Center that day, and we are. He asked, you know, what school districts are doing it, and we were the only ones that raised our hands through Helmer. So most schools are not running events, at least at this point in time. And yeah, that's really it on that. We saw, as Dr. Johnson mentioned, through facilities, we took a tour of Pine Grove the other day, and we saw all of the eclipse materials out. You can use colanders and pinhole cameras and even Ritz crackers as an eclipse viewing tool. So
Lots of snacks.
yeah, and then you get
I'll have to check that out.
Right, yeah.
super excited for that.
I use chocolate chip.
And historically, we have a 53% chance of it not being cloudy. So we need to put all of our positive energy and risk the clouds away that day. Next is Helmer Nature Center with Mr. Connor and Mr. May.
So I'm looking for the date. We've had a meeting recently, but Karen sent an email. I'm sorry, I can't find the date right now. I thought it was on my calendar, and it's not, for some reason. Not
I don't think she's finalized the date.
Yeah, maybe it was, she asked for dates then.
Yeah.
But we're having one here, I think in February. James, you were sitting over too. And it really, it's gonna, a lot of their work right now is, as Matt says, it's eclipse. So we're excited.
Awesome. Next is PTSA with Mrs. Porter and Mrs. Bornwell.
Want me to start? And then you
Sure.
can- Okay. So we met on the 9th. It was virtual because of the wind storm that night, and there were a lot of people in attendance. This was my first, so they
Yes.
were very pleased with that. They talked about the executive committee and how they're still looking to fill some roles. Membership and social media was 2 of the ones that they mentioned. They are working with all of the schools to possibly do the school supply kits. I know that some have been doing that. Pieces have to come together though, like consensus with grade levels and things like that before they move forward with what they need in those kits. So there is some work that needs to happen before that happens. And then they're talking about bringing back the Next to New sale, which was very popular for many years. And they're hoping to bring it back in May this year and make it a fundraiser for the whole PTA instead of building, so of equity, so that buildings are getting what they need from now on. And then
There was talk about the UPK program and discussions about how families could be a part of the PTSA and also a part of the school community. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
Awesome. Next is West Irondequoit Foundation with Mr. Connor.
They approved advertisement for the Alumni Association and the Foundation in the yearbook. They're locking in the dates for next year's cornhole tournament and finalized some more things about the membership application.
Thank you very much. Next is Teacher Learning Center with Mrs. Borer and Mr. Sullivan.
Our last meeting was canceled. It was supposed to be, let me find it, the 18th, and it was canceled. So our next meeting is going to be February 29th.
Okay. Next is facilities with myself and Ms. Vargas Cronin. As Dr. Johnson mentioned, we met earlier this week. We had an update on the Rogers floor, which Dr. Johnson already updated us on as well. As you were going through yours, I'm scratching things out on my list too. No approval on the RISE project yet. It's still sitting at SED. Current wait times at SED are roughly 20 to 22 weeks right now, but we're hopeful to have approval soon.
How long have we been there? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Did it get put in right after the vote?
We're at the, I think around the 14-week marker.
Okay.
So hopefully soon. The capital outlay exclusion project at Seneca is coming along. A lot of the work's being done second shift right now, and then we're going to do heavy lift during February break. And then for the bulk of the meeting, we took a field trip over to Pine Grove. We got to check out the tutoring center, which is up and running now. Looks great. New carpet, has that new carpet smell. We got to see new furniture that we worked with Vazen on. Really, really cool stuff. So lots of nooks and crannies where you can have breakout kind of things. Then we spent the bulk of the time looking at the rest of the building and where and how and when we could get pre-K classrooms up and running there, as Dr. Johnson talked about as well. So we were there with CPL and Campus Construction, and they were taking copious notes. Some stuff that was new to me, so it's probably new to the board, is that we're required by state ed to have a gym/cafeteria space. So there was some questions whether the current all-purpose room would work for that, or we'd have to reallocate. There's plenty of space to work with for the 3 classrooms that we're targeting right now, because we were like, oh my God, this just keeps going. There could be another classroom here. And one thing that was new to me was that this construction will qualify for building aid, because it will be permanent housed students there. So that will be a win for us as well, because I think originally when we talked about it, we weren't sure that that was going to happen. But CPL is up on all of the current state ed requirements regarding that, and how to make sure we get the most bang for our buck as far as state aid. So, John?
I have a question on state aid, and probably to Dr. Johnson. Since it'll be permanent classrooms, and this is new, great information about the building aid, would any part of the purchase then be aidable? Like, let's say we use 50% of that building for these classrooms, would, I don't know.
I don't know, we'll have to.
It's a great question, you'll have to help us with that.
Yeah.
That might be an avenue that we normally don't buy a building to usually build it, right? So this is, but now that it's aidable, is that an option that we could look at?
Sure.
And CPL plans to report back to the next facilities committee meeting with some design/layout ideas and timelines, and what that looks like as if we did a May vote next year on the capital project, or if we had to do some other timeline as well. So as there's more information, we'll report back.
Yep.
Thanks. Next is health and safety with Ms. Cornwall.
There is no further update than what I provided at our last meeting. The Health and Safety Committee had met back in December on the 5th, and our next meeting is March 5th.
Awesome. Next is IHS with Mr. Ray.
So you think it's hard?
I know, right?
Dr. Johnson with the facilities. I not only have to follow Dr. Johnson's superintendent update, but also our student reps who tend to take a lot of the thunder of what I have. So some of this might be a repeat, but anyways. See what you got. I'll look forward to when you do the liaison to the high school. So no, it's a great building over there. Our leadership team is fully engaged in students, and you can tell that by just when you talk to them, and when you are with them, then students, they know by name, and the way students will come up to them and talk to them, so it's a great culture over there. Some of the things that Alicia just wanted to mention, and we talked about, is our wrestlers and swimming and diving had their senior nights. I can't believe we're through our second season already and we're doing senior nights. So congratulations to them. And the other one was they will be inducting the new inductees into the Tri-Am Music Hall of Fame coming up like within the next couple weeks. So I'll give you the full number once I get that. So that's all I have.
Awesome. Next is date with Mrs. Ford.
I emailed back and forth with Mr. Bajardi, is that how you say his? Okay, thank you. And he reported that Dake is getting ready for their talent show, which will be on February 16th. They have many very different acts this year of singing, dancing, and some poetry, so they're really excited about that. The annual DC trip is approaching quickly, and students are, they put in their preferred roommates at this point, and the t-shirt designs are in, so students are getting excited about that. And Dakers are continuing to engage in a wide variety of clubs and organizations, and really trying to make sure at the school that they have something for every child that wants to be involved. Whether it be sports or clubs or things like that. So that's
excellent.
It's great to hear that the Washington trip's coming back. I know, like my kids, even at Christmas time, I remember they were talking about like when they did it, and so I'm glad to see that we were able to. And that's not an easy thing for our staff, so it's really a labor of love, I'll call it. Absolutely.
I was glad to see that that was on there.
Yeah, 400 8th graders.
So, and we'll skip Rogers because Mr. Sullivan is not here, so that brings us to Iroquois with Mrs. Wonderful.
Yeah, so I had a wonderful visit at Iroquois last week. I was able to visit a classroom in 4th, 5th, and 6th, got to see what they were doing, participate, went to art class, did a couple art projects. There was a lot of fun things. It was a great visit. Christian really did a great job with touring me around, and it was just so amazing to see the kids. And again, it was like what we saw at our study sessions, and it just sort of reiterated the fantastic work going on because it was so organic watching them like in their setting. It was unexpected. They didn't know that like I was coming. And just the enthusiasm and the interest that these kids have. And I had said to Christian afterwards, like, it makes me genuinely believe that these kids feel very safe in their environments because it didn't matter if they made a mistake. Like, there wasn't that feeling of embarrassment. Like, it was just a really, like, every classroom that I had gone to exhibited that. And I loved that. So it was just a really nice visit. A couple of things that I said I would share and highlight was that the kids are going to be engaging in a number of assessments this month, including the Winter iReady diagnostic, which provides that good benchmarking and progress monitoring data. Grade level teams will follow up with the intervention reviews early next month in order to make any adjustments to the tiered interventions in classroom instruction. And then they're also getting ready for their winter social family night events, which include 6th grade bingo night on the 26th. So I was encouraged to share that, and if anybody would like to come and play some bingo, that is 26th.
Be careful though. I went once, and as a board member, I was forced to call the number. So
yeah, but it was a really great visit. I really appreciated it.
Thank you. Next is Brookview Seneca, Mr. Connor.
Both schools are kicking off Kindness Week tomorrow with a whole school assembly, and next week students and staff will have the opportunity to spread additional acts of kindness throughout the school. Students are engaged in mid-year assessments, and they're looking forward to celebrating all the learning that has occurred over the first half of the school year.
Awesome, thank you. And then rounding it out is Listwood South Lawn with myself. I got an update from Ms. Pavone. Students are back in routine and working hard. We are in the midst of mid-year testing. It is great to see all of the great growth. It has been a great team effort to get the testing completed. Teachers are excited about the SES grants. They're excited about the items they are going to be able to get for their classrooms to support sensory needs and social emotional learning. Also, we have on the calendar a tour of South Lawn next Thursday, so I'll report out about that next time. And that brings us to future meetings, Mrs. Lustig.
We have a workshop next Thursday, January 25th at 5:30 p.m. here at District Office. A study session on February 1st at 6 p.m. at Dake, and a business meeting February 15th at 7 p.m. here at District Office.
Thank you very much. Next is executive session. Is there a reason to go into executive session tonight?
Yes, there is, to discuss the employment history of a particular person or persons.
Breaking the streak, Dr. Johnson. May I have a motion to adjourn into executive session? Thank you, Mr. Bay. May I have a second? Seconded by Mrs. Bornabal. All those in favor? That is 5-0, Mrs. Lustig. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for a great meeting.